You didn't really play a lot of golf as a kid. Rumor has it you started when you were about 19 years old. You picked up a golf club.
I look back on the last 15, 16 years that I've had on Champ Tour, and I have really, really enjoyed it.
Welcome back, folks. We're a Florida Golf Experience. I'm a local PGA professional, and I'm here with Dan Henson, realtor extraordinaire in the Sarasota area. And we have some special guests for you today, and we're really looking forward to having these conversations.
So today we're going to talk to Mr. Olin Browne. Yep, and he's got some really cool stories. We talked a little bit on the phone before we got started. So we're looking forward to this interview. We hope you can enjoy this interview with us. And make sure you leave comments down below if you have any questions about these interviews. We'd love to answer those questions for you at any time. Now we're on to Olin Browne. Today we have a wonderful guest with us. He is one of the few people that have ever won on the Korn Ferry Tour, the PGA Tour, and the Champions Tour. I think we got that right for you. Started at age 19 and 59 with a legendary 59 qualifier for the U.S. Open. We have Mr. Olin Browne with us today. I hope I covered some of that stuff and got it correct.
Well, you covered some of it and you got it correct. So we're all good. Good start.
Yeah, we're going to get you through the rest of it. That's for sure. So
40 years worth, man. You wouldn't have enough time.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of good stories we'd like to tap into.
We'll see what we come up with.
Yes, sir.
So you looking forward to Open Week this week?
I look forward to the majors. I just got done watching 2 weeks of unbelievable French Open tennis, including the two championship matches, which I thought were spectacular. But yesterday, the last time I watched tennis that was that compelling, it was Roddick and Federer back in 2009 or 10. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I just, frankly, the idea that Alcaraz had so many break points in the first set and couldn't win the first set, and then lost the second in a tiebreak, but came back to win the last three against, Sinner is as good as we've seen in a long time, and so is Alcaraz. So they're 1-1A. It was so exciting, and the finish to it, the fifth set was literally just as good as anything could be.
Yeah,
it's a good time for sports right now.
Wonderful. But yeah, Open Week is always, we all, as golfers, we all look towards the biggest championships, and certainly, the U.S. Open, and especially at a course like Oakmont, which has hosted so many of them, and has such a storied history. And you look at the list of champions that have come off of that golf course and in that tournament, not just that one, but the PGA as well, and it's just one of those. It's one of those.
Absolutely. Good question.
So how hard is Oakmont? They're going to set it up tough for the boys. Are they going to make it? Is it reasonable, or is it just going to be brutal?
No, it's both, right? I think that's the ultimate test of a great championship, is that it's reasonable if you do what you're asked, and it's brutal if you don't, and it can be some mix of the two. And I think that those great championship venues like that really present those kinds of problems to be addressed. And Oakmont, certainly, I'm sure you guys have seen already, the guys are posting balls in the rough and hacking them out with 60s, or hacking them 3 feet with 60 degrees. And you're going to see everything at this course. And I was just looking up the weather. It looks like things are really good until the weekend, and then some rain might move in, and God help those guys if they get it in that long, wet grass off the tee. So it's just going to be really problematic for the whole field.
Yeah, you've played there a couple of times yourself in these Opens, and what kind of game is it? Is it going to be more precision, or these guys long drive? Who's got the advantage?
There used to be that old adage about horses for courses, and that's disappeared now. And you just have to really unload on the driver and hit it as far as you can. Now, Oakmont is maybe a little different in that it offers some options off the tee. You don't have to hit driver off of 1 or 10. They've amplified some fairways on a few holes, 2, 3, 7, 10, 11, and 14, to offer the players some options. You've got par threes that are anywhere from a mid to a short iron to a driver, depending on the conditions. You've got the 8th hole, which is one of those par threes, can play over 300 yards. And the 17th hole, I recall in 2007, which was my last year playing there, that 8 and 17 played the same length on Sunday. So and one's a par 4, one's a par 3. So great courses offer a variety of options, and you're going to see all kinds of golf played. And what you're going to see is what you see at every U.S. Open virtually, which is the best U.S. Open style player rise to the top. And there are a number of those, and there are guys who have, history there. So I think you could look at some of those things and see, pick your favorites.
If you were going to pick a number, a couple over par, a couple under par, 5 under, hard to say.
Well, I have no idea how the USGA is approaching this. If they decide that they want to make over par the winning score, they can set up the course to make over par the winning score. If they want to make the course so that it's, hugely risk reward with, extremes on whatever end of the spectrum, birdies and triples, they can do that too. So I really think that, when you talk about US Opens, the first thing that comes to mind is precision, right? You got to be accurate off the tee, and you got to control your irons. And then when you do, you got to be, have a reliable short game. But if the weather gets to being a factor, like if the greens cook and the wind starts blowing, I mean, lock the door and hide the kids, because it's going to be murderous. So I think anything's in play here, from 4 or 5 under to 5 to 10 over. It's just really hard to say early in the week.
It's a great range. I mean, I'm sure that you've a lot of people are always asking this, and we're talking about it, but you got Rory and Scotty out there. Everybody's looking at who's going to do what, and it doesn't look like Rory's having a really good round this past couple of days. Who you look at being the favorite here?
Well, I mean, Scotty's played the best golf over the last 3 years of anybody in golf. Xander gave him a run last year, won a couple of majors as well. So you look at guys who have a history playing really hard golf courses really well, and those are the guys that you want to kind of put your eyes on. But Rory certainly has to be experiencing a little bit of a letdown, considering he's been 12 or 13 years trying to solve this personal slam riddle. And he did it at Augusta, and you could see the emotion pour out of him after that putt went in the playoff. And so I imagine that, he's human, in spite of what we all try and make him out to be. He's human, and I imagine he's trying to collect his emotions and collect his, realign his compass, because obviously he went up to Canada last week and had a rough go. But a little rough up there was all you wanted, and he found a lot of it. And so maybe he got that out of his system. It's hard to know, right? But great players rise to the occasion, in particular when they get on these storied and venued course or historical courses. You certainly, when you look at the list and you have a short list, you got to put him on it.
Yeah, he can snap out of it at any time.
Listen, all those guys. Listen, this is the elite of the elite, and I made the reference to the French Open because we saw it over this last couple of weeks. The great players rise to the occasion. It doesn't matter where they've been, what they've been doing. Jack did it too. I can't, if I could tell you the number of times I've heard Jack do an interview, said, well, I got something on the range on Wednesday. Then he went and won the tournament by 5 shots. These guys find a way. And, the greatest misconception in sports is that elite athletes are firing full tilt boogie at all times. And what they're doing is they're managing their skill set to the best of their abilities. And sometimes basketball players got a bad ankle, plays around it. Sometimes the guy's got a bad finger, shoots with the other hand. Sometimes guys are driving the ball less well than others. Jack Nicklaus famously would put his 1 iron in play and wear out the golf course that way. So the best players in every sport at the highest level are always out thinking the competitors. And so the guy who wins the championship this next week is going to be the guy who not only played well, but managed his game better than the other guys and didn't bite the hook, right? He let the fly pass him on by, and he waited for the other fish to bite the fly and get pulled out of the water. So you got to look at guys who are patient, who guys are super, super strong-willed, and who are willing to accept, what like the New England Patriots would, as long as they had the ball with a minute to go, they didn't care if they were down by 3 or 4 or 6. They knew that they had the capability to bring it to the finish. And that's what you see in a US Open. You see a guy who's tempered and is able to manage the entire situation coming at him from every direction.
Kind of leads me to this. You played there in 94 and you went back and what was it, 07? What was kind of the difference from the one to the next time, going back for the second time?
Well,
Obviously you felt you had some experience.
It was a dramatically different course the second time. The first time it had, 100 years of growth on it, and the trees were everywhere. They were mature. They were, 100 feet tall. They were whatever they were, walnuts and maples and oaks and everything else, and conifers. And the golf course was kind of obscured beneath the canopy. You couldn't really see from the top of the hill, which, the 18th green and the putting green are one green, and they delineate. There's a little series of dots or whatever, and one is a practice area and the other one is the golf course. But you could look down that hill and see 1, 10, 11, 12. And if you looked over to the other side, you could see, a couple of the holes in the middle of the back nine, but you couldn't see across the Pennsylvania Turnpike. You couldn't see any of those holes on the front nine. You might make out a piece of number 2. And then they did a tree removal project before the 07 Open. And from the putting green, you could see virtually the entire golf course. It looked like a more open rural area that had once been farmland, which is, I imagine, what it was originally. And I looked out there and I said, now I kind of get it, But I think one of the things that's so magnificent about these golf restorations, I know people love trees, and superintendents hate them because they choke out the golf course. There's too much shade, and not enough air moving around. So they don't mind tree removal projects, The people who love the squirrels and the birds do. But I'll just say that when these courses were built originally, there weren't as many trees, and there was a lot more open space, and you could get kind of more contrast and effect, fescues and topography and all that kind of stuff. And so aesthetically, I would say that Oakmont was much more pleasing to the eye in 07 than it was in 94.
Excellent.
So what do you think? What makes Scotty so special these days? I mean, the way he moves with the driver and stuff, I don't know how he does it, but he drives the ball great. What gives him the edge? Is it mental toughness? Is he just
I wouldn't get fooled by his footwork. I mean, Rick Barry had a funny looking free throw technique, and he led the league, right? And so I think that, listen, I think everybody's in pursuit of excellence. I think everybody who plays this game, certainly for a living, they look for common denominators and fundamentals that are applicable, and a variety of different ways to achieve those things. But if you look at Scotty, he's not the first guy whose feet were moving. Calc's feet moved a lot. Greg Norman had a slide with his right foot. It's not the first time that somebody looked like he was falling down, hitting great golf shots. Gary Player would step across his left foot, and smash him down the fairway. So I think that we get far too wrapped up in looking at things that we see as abnormal, and instead of, you look at his club face. His club face doesn't waver. It's so stable, right, from the top to the point of impact and then through the ball. And when you see a guy who delivers a stable club face like that, think about guys like David Duval or Tiger Woods or people like that, and you see what really matters, which is club to the ball. And if the club gets on the ball properly, then the guy can call his shot, how he just changes his path and can alter what the ball's doing. And so he has an incredibly reliable motion. He has a very stable club face. He does pretty much everything to some degree. What's really scary is that, prior to this year, he would lose strokes putting to the field. And this year, he's actually on the other side of that metric, and he's gaining strokes putting. So if he set a record last year, winning however many times it was and however much money it was, and the FedEx Cup and the whole deal, and he was doing it being what you would consider less than the mean or the median on tour with a putter, and now he's on the other side of that metric. I mean, what's not to like? It's like, it's watching poetry, right? He finds the things that need work and works on them until they become a strength instead of a liability. And he's just relentlessly good.
He really is. He really is.
Yeah.
It was a little late. You didn't really play a lot of golf as a kid. The rumor has it you started when you were about 19 years old. You picked up a golf club. How did you know? Like,
I don't know. I was trying to avoid facing reality, right? It was the whole college thing where you got to pick your poison for life.
Right.
And I got a summer job working in a bag room and started playing it. And I went to a small Division III school, Occidental College, and we had a golf team that allowed a guy who could shoot 90 to make the team, which is what I did. And after a couple of years, I had improved quite a bit. I became, the number one player on the team, and it's just one of those kind of things where I diluted myself just enough to give myself the false hope that I could carve out a career chasing a pellet instead of a coat and a tie and a pen and a piece of paper. And so I somehow put it all together and made it work.
That's a great story. It's kept it simple. I mean, kind of coming up through there. Can you take us back to like maybe that Hartford Open when you had that playoff with Larry Mize and you had Sink? How was that kind of pressure? I mean, I know making the cuts pressurable, but then you get something like this.
It's totally different. If you're bubble for the cut Friday, you're stressed on making a check for the week, right? And you've already committed your caddy's salary and your hotel and your food and whatever, your travel expenses, your family's travel expenses. And by the time you get into contention in a tournament on Sunday, now you just want to hit really good shots because a bad shot could derail you. But the important thing is to make sure that you put the club on the ball. And it's an entirely different, I would say it's less pressure and more framing of focus. It's a lot easier, I think, to execute and hit a good shot when you feel like you're playing well than to execute and hit a good shot when you're struggling to play well. It's a little bit of a difference, and your points of reference are a little bit different, and so I just feel like it's like becomes habitual. So you asked a minute ago about Scotty and what makes him so good. Well, he's used to playing a variety of different shots when it matters, right? And he's got the ability to tune things out and not let them be a distraction and kind of channel his energy towards the ultimate outcome. And I think that that's what great players do too, is that they find what they're doing well that day, and then they just let the day come to them in that regard. Like, if you're hanging the ball a little right, well, you either aim a little left, or you don't have to worry about missing a green left. You can take on a left pin, that kind of thing. So I think being adjustable to the situation matters a lot. But I think it's just so valuable to guys who have the ability to adjust on the fly. I think it makes a difference when you're coming into what's happening on Friday afternoon late, but certainly on Sunday when things are getting a little tighter. You've got a whole 4 days of having executed shots and having seen certain holes, and what's in front of you that particular day. And if you're up the leaderboard, you've obviously been playing well. And so I think it becomes maybe a little bit easier that way.
Yeah, it's kind of like I was asking a little bit about that playoff, because it kind of reminded me just watching the RBC yesterday when they had that playoff, 3 playoff holes on that. And he makes that amazing shot from 258 yards out and drops it within 8 feet of the pin.
It was an incredible shot. And I've never seen him change a hole location in a playoff.
I know, it was something new.
And just to offer a little variety, maybe to, I don't know, shake things up a hair. Certainly an interesting twist to the tournament, but Ryan Fox has been a good player for a long time. He may not necessarily be a household name, even though he's won twice in the last month or so. He's trying to change that, but he's been a guy that a lot of guys have known about for a long while. He's no flash in the pan, so it wasn't by accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be out there for a while if he wants to be, for sure. Give us an idea of the difference of the pressure of playing on the regular tour and the Champions Tour. Feel the same pressure, or are you just, man, I'm out here having fun on the Champions Tour?
No, man, guys care just as much. I tell you what, if you're 25 years old and you're on the PGA Tour, you don't see the end, right? You don't see 50 coming on you very quickly. But when you're 50, that you're at the, well, as it relates to the Champions Tour, you're at the top of the slide. But the minute you get on that burlap sack and slide down it, if you've ever done that, you're headed towards the bottom pretty quickly. I'm 66 now, and I don't have much time left. And, I look back on the last 15, 16 years that I've had on Champ Tour, and I have really, really enjoyed it. But boy, I wish I could do it for another 15 or 16 years. It's just not in the cards. So I think there's a little more perspective, maybe. When you're a kid, you're full throttle. You're trying to make a name for yourself. You're trying to stay with it, trying to support your family. You're trying to do all those kinds of things. You get on the Champions Tour, and certainly you could look at Bernhard Langer as an example, Hale Irwin, guys like that. They came out with a purpose and
right.
set the records. And so I think if if you were going to ask me what I would say to somebody who's turning 50, I go, it doesn't last very long. You got maybe 8 or 10 really good years, and if you could take advantage of that, you can have a heck of a run. But man, it goes by in a blink.
Well, it does. I was in high school a couple of years ago, it seems like, and now,
Right.
I'm 64. It's like, where
I
did
need
it
a
go
damn
here?
walker, man. I went to the eye doctor today. I got a little issue with my eye, and he dilated my left eye, and I got one eye that I can't see out of right now, and I got one that I'm talking. So I'm looking at you cockeyed, right? And I was in the waiting room there. I looked at my wife, and I go, "Oh my God, this is where we're going." I said, "I'm gonna drive off the Juneau Pier."
Well, you're out there at the Medalist. I was going to ask you about some of your favorite courses in the Florida area, but I got a feeling you're in a pretty nice place right there.
It's a pretty good hang here. Medalist, I've been a member since the late 90s. It's a Pete Dye, Greg Norman creation, and it's a great membership and a great golfers club, right? That's all we do here. We've got no pool, we got no tennis, it's just golf. It's golf and wildlife, and so you avoid the gators and the snakes. And we got an incredible superintendent, Jason Jobson, here. He does an incredible job. Our course is in impeccable condition. That's why you see a lot of tour guys join the club, because it's a great place to work on their short games, work on their putting. You don't have to make an adjustment from greens that are stimping at 9 at your home club to go out on tour and play greens that are stimping at 13. So while Jason might bow up a little bit, because I asked him what are the green speeds. He goes, "I've never measured them." Right. All I can tell you is they're really quick and they're really good. And everybody who comes here loves to play the golf course. So feel very fortunate to be able to do that.
Do you have any other couple courses you might want to compare that are good?
Yeah, we got, so when I moved here in the early 80s, there were just, Seminole was the name course in the area. And I still think it's one of the great courses in golf. Now time and equipment have changed the way the golf course plays. And so, they've had to make adjustments just like every other golf course. But, we got MacArthur next door with 2 sensational golf courses. The backyard was just completed a couple years ago. Everybody loves that. You go over on the West Coast, Calusa Pines is sensational. And probably the most underrated course in the state, I think, is the Copperhead at where they play the tour event every year. Valspar. And I'll just tell you, that golf course gives you everything you want. It's got dog legs that go against the slope. It's got some elevation change. It's got greens that give you the heebie-jeebies. It's got rough that comes up to mid shin. You got water problems. You got wind and weather. It's just a really fine golf course. And so, we're in South Florida. We have some topography issues. You get south of the middle of the state and it's pretty flat, right? So you got to get coastal. Key Biscayne was always a great golf course, and Doral, back in the day when we played spinny balls and 30-mile-an-hour winds, man, it was murderous, right? And and so we got a few of them here, but it's not, I don't think, like the Long Island area or the Met section or Chicago, which have those old golf courses, 150 years old, that have been around forever, maybe some in Boston too. But we got great South Florida golf in this area for sure.
If you had to hit a shot to win a golf tournament, what club would you want to have in your hand?
Well,
favorite club?
About anywhere under a foot with a putter. Yeah, really, really good way. And you know what? I'd line that SOB up too. I wouldn't just tap it in. I'd line that thing up, and I'd take my time with it.
Oh goodness!
Everything is so debated. Look, you mentioned Hartford. I chipped in to win Hartford. Stuart Sink was cussing me on the way to marking his ball. He said, "You can't do that." I go, "Sorry, bro." Picked up my ball out of the hole and went, skittling along to the side. And, obviously the last shot is a putt. The last shot's a putt unless you chip one in. So I'll take my putter.
Well, that's what Ryan Fox did to get his first win a couple of weeks ago. He chipped in the playoff.
It was an awesome shot too, wasn't it? totally out of the blue. I mean, it's one of those kind of things that just flips the whole narrative right there because, man,
he's looking like he's not even going to be part of the next hole.
Well, yeah, and then all of a sudden that thing hoops, and see you guys. I'll catch you next week.
Exactly.
How about that Phil shot yesterday or the other day?
I saw that. He's been, you know what? Everybody's acting like that's the first time he's ever done it. He's been doing that for 35 years.
Probably all you guys have done it once in a while.
We've all been watching that crap for 35 years. It's just amazing to watch him do stuff like that. I mean,
you guys do it in the clubhouse all the time.
I remember last time at Augusta, I think it was the last time he won Augusta. He hit it. The pin was on the left on Sunday. Maybe it was Sunday, Saturday or Sunday. It was all the way left on 15. And he missed the green to way right. And every sane person would have put that ball on the ground and trundled it down there, tried to leave it 20 feet short, 2-putt. No, he took his lobber out and flipped it up there, two hops and a stop, tapped in his birdie putt and went on to 16. You know, he's been doing that his whole life. He built his game around that. He grew up with that chipping area in his backyard, and he's a friggin' psycho around the greens.
Well, that brings up the question of live golf. What's your thoughts? Or, you know, we touching territory you don't want to talk about?
Ask me any question.
Not live golf, you know.
What about it?
You know,
I haven't watched it.
You see it in 5 years? Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. You see it still being around in 5 years?
I honestly don't have any idea. I know a bunch of those guys. I'm pretty friendly with Joaquin Neiman, who's an incredible young player. From South America, from Chile. Listen, I don't know where it's going to end up. I know what they're trying to do, and I'm not overly thrilled with the way the whole thing is played out because golf has been turned upside down. You know, you look at the guys who are playing out there. Some of them don't look all that happy with what they're doing. You know, they come back and play the majors and they haven't performed the way they'd like. Bryson certainly managed to do it pretty well. Brooks has managed to do it pretty well. But the other guys aren't getting into some of the tournaments that they wanted to get into. And I think that in a lot of ways, you know, we're not seeing the very best that some of those guys have to offer because I don't even know what channel it's broadcast on, you know? And so I miss seeing John Rahm stalk the fairways. I miss seeing what Brooks Koepka did. You know, my son played against him in high school, talking to him here on the putting green. He was an incredible golfer, is an incredible golfer. But I mean, he had a run there where he showed up for the big weeks and he was ready to go. And I don't even know, I haven't seen him in 2-3 years, you know? And so I think that's a shame. And I think golf is suffering because of it. I think that the guys who are doing really well on tour right now, you know, maybe they're not getting the props that they should be getting because some of those guys aren't in the fields. But you know what? They left, and they left, and they made that choice. So golf is so good. What Scottie Scheffler's doing is so extraordinary. What Rory did winning the career Grand Slam. You know, those things are milestone-ish, right? I mean, Scotty's doing what Tiger did. Scotty's doing what David Duval did and what VJ did.
Right.
But, you know, he's reached the point that those guys reached also. And there came a point where, you know, like VJ, I think won 9 tournaments one year. Well, that's not sustainable. You can't win 9 tournaments every year. He might have won 4 another year or whatever. But Tiger had a bunch of years where he won 7, 8 events. And Scotty looks like he's winning 5 or 6 events. And if he keeps going, you know, everybody talks about, you know, it's like heretical to put him in the same context as what Tiger Woods has done. And it is to the extent that he's done it for 3 years and Tiger did it for basically 12 solid and, you know, basically 20. But if Scotty keeps going like he has been, and he doesn't show a lot of signs of slowing down, he's got one of the best caddies that's ever walked the green grasses of the tour in Teddy Scott. And that looks like they got a pretty solid relationship, you know, a lot like what Tiger had with Stevie and what Jack had with Angelo and what Tom Watson had. So with Bruce Edwards, those kinds of things, they all matter, right? And, you know, health, family situation, all those things, you know, tie together to make the career of an individual. So Scotty's still young. I mean, he's just getting going, and if he can do what he's been doing for an extended period, we're talking about a historical player.
I mean, if you could get some, you probably still get some pretty good odds right now to pick Scotty as the next guy to win the Grand Slam. It's probably a pretty good bet at this point. If he doesn't get hurt, he stays healthy.
It was also a really good bet that Tiger was going to win 25 majors. I don't think you'd have taken anybody when he won in 08 on a broken leg. Everybody go, okay, this guy's he's not stoppable. And so life has a funny way of dealing the cards, right? And so guys got to manage that. And listen, the guy obviously has no weakness on the golf course. And it just matters how the rest of his life goes as to whether he can maintain his focus and his will, right? Because if you get tired of doing something, you lose that edge, right? You gotta be edged up a little bit, and you gotta have a hunger for it. So it's so hard to sustain that kind of excellence over a long period of time because there's so many things that can get in the way. But he seems to have everything lined up just how he wants it. And there weren't many guys where you look at him and you ask the question, that guy or the field, right? And so we're starting to enter that kind of territory, right? Mm-hmm. Xander looked like he was making a run, and then he hurt his ribs, right? So I don't think he's won yet this year, and he's trying to regain the form that won him two majors last season. And Rory has had a little bit of a probably mental letdown because he accomplished a lifetime goal. And you probably wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I've done what I wanted to do. Maybe I could take a break, or maybe it loosens me up to keep doing more of the same. And so inevitably it's time that makes those decisions.
Well, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I wouldn't mind get some advice from you from, I'm the guy that's in the 90s, and Christian gives me a lot of hints, and there's a lot of guys that are starting to watch our show that need that extra hint. What's kind of your tip for the amateur to get from 90 to the next level?
Man, I'm trying to figure it out for myself. If I had some kind of genius tip, I'd lay it on you. But I will say this: I was playing mini tours back in the day. I had a buddy, Freddie Wadsworth, and he said something that stuck with me for a long time. He said, golf is never trying to hit the perfect shot. I think we all get wrapped up with that, and certainly the whole highlight concept, right? I mean, ESPN has turned sports from what they were when I was a kid to a highlight reel now. And so people's focus changes, and their, what they see in something changes, and so I think the same thing would hold true. Like if you never feel like you have to hit a perfect shot, you're going to be in and around where you need to be. So just do the best that you can on any one shot, and don't try and do too much with it.
That's good advice. I think you've told me don't if you can't make that 212 over the water, don't do it.
Exactly.
Don't do it. If it ain't happening, It ain't happening. It's just gonna make you mad.
Yeah.
Do you have still to this day maybe a go-to drill that, like, when you're not doing what you want to do, is there something you go, man, I'm just going to go back to this and this will get me on track again?
Yeah, no. So I was the guy that if you got 20 math questions on your homework and you got the first 5 right, I couldn't figure out why I had to do the next 15. So the drill thing has always eluded me, right? There are things that what you're trying to do with a drill is there are 2 things I would say. Is if a drill gives you a feel, I tend to be more of a feel-oriented player. If a drill gives me a feel, then I might work on a drill to give me that feel. But if a drill is just repetition, you lost me, right?
Right.
Checking out. So I think it matters a lot. Look, I don't think there's any one blueprint for how golfers do what they do. There are guys they play better when they're relaxed. They're guys who play better when they're wound up, right? They're guys who play better when they feel like they've touched all the bases, when they've dotted all the I's and the T's. So they set the T's at the 4 quadrants around the hole from 3 feet, from 6 feet, from 10 feet. And until they made 98.99%, they don't feel like they're ready to go play. And then there are guys who roll out of bed and head to the first tee without hitting 2 shots, right? John Daly, Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is the kind of guy who never showed unprepared. John Daly showed up at the first tee and said, "Let me see what I got today." They both had pretty good runs.
Yeah, Litsky was one of those guys. He was going to
Yeah,
play
he
golf.
was the old banana under the head cover story. And I mean, there are guys like that, right? There are guys like,
yeah.
I can tell you the guys who, one player in particular, I don't want to name him because I don't want to call him out, but he was the most beautiful ball striker you've ever seen. He could not shake in a 4-footer. And he'd come off the golf course, he would head right to the driving range and bang drivers all day long. Never saw him on the putting green, right? When it was the one thing that was holding him back. So you gotta embrace the things that you do really well and rely on them, but you got to fix the things that are causing you trouble. And circling back to the beginning of our conversation here, Scotty Scheffler was behind the 8 ball with his putter the last 2 years, and now he's on the plus side of that. So just imagine if a guy was that dominant on tour, losing strokes with his putter, and now he's on the flip side of that, and he's gaining strokes with his putter. Well, that's how you create longevity. That's how you create historical relevance, right? And that's how you become the kind of player that it looks like he wants to be.
That's great.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I appreciate your time. I don't want to take too much of your day, but this has been amazing. I really do appreciate you giving us your time, and we look forward to catching you in the future, and hopefully hear some good stories coming out of the future for you.
Great conversation, Dan. Christian, it's good meeting you guys. Glad to do it today. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to seeing what happens this weekend. It's going to be riveting golf, I'll guarantee it, because Oakmont is one of those courses and make you bleed along the way. But somebody's going to hoist the trophy on Sunday. They're going to invoke the memory of Arnold Palmer, and there's a good reason for that, because that's his turf, right? And it's got a great and storied history, a great golf professional in Bob Ford, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
That's great. Well, we look forward to catching up with you in the future. Thank you so much. So another great podcast we had today. Mr. Olin Browne joined us today. Had a lot to say. I thought, I didn't think it was going to go that way, and he had a lot of good advice and opinions in there that kind of shocked me.
Well, it was an easy interview with Olin because he's a wealth of information, and he's been around a long time, and he was willing to give his opinion and his thoughts on pretty much any subject that we brought up. So I thought it was really, really a good interview. Yeah.
So what was one? Do you have a big takeaway from some of that? Because I think we hit the live thing a little bit, which I know that you're not a fan of. I know you're not.
I am not.
But it is in the news today, so we kind of have to talk about a little bit. At least I feel we need to bring it up. You don't necessarily think that, but hey, that's how we go. That's why we're here together. But he didn't have much to say about Liv, did he?
Well, he and I believe share the same opinion when it comes to the Rogue Tour. So I guess that's all we'll say about that. But it was interesting to listen to him talk about Oakmont. That was his first major that he played there, and he said, it's going to give him a test, and he's right, and it's going to come down to the USGA. How did they set it up? I mean, they could make that place really, really difficult, or they could soften it up a little bit, or the weather could impact the way things are going to go this week. So it should be an exciting week.
Well, to kind of go on that note, and, we got a couple more things to talk about. We'll kind of finish up this podcast, but, going into this, I think there's a strong opinion how good Scotty's going to be. But, Rory's got that thing in, and I thought it was a good point that he brought it up. He's like, hey, maybe he went out and shot, poorly, got some of that stuff out of his way, and now he'll come back strong. So Rory might be surprising us, but right now it doesn't look things are going his way, but he could, he's a pretty good player, so he could snap back.
Listen, Rory's obviously a generational player. He has to be suffering from a little bit of a hangover from winning the Grand Slam.
Yeah.
6 guys in the history of the tour have done it. So, and, when that hangover wears off, and it could be wearing off right now, he's still going to be a force to be reckoned with. Rory is far from done. And if he gets the driver working this week, he's going to give Scotty a run for his money.
One of the things we didn't really talk about, but it was kind of unique about the U.S. Open, is a lot of people anybody can get in it, right? And you play that, what do they call the longest day of golf? What is that?
Yeah, that's going through the qualifying series. I mean, literally, the definition of Open Championship is it's open to anybody on the planet that wants to try and qualify. Of course, there's criteria involved. I mean, if you don't shoot a certain score or less, you're not going to be able to qualify or try to qualify next year, and rightfully so. But much like the Open Championship across the pond, I mean, there are qualifying sites literally now all over the world for these tournaments.
Yeah.
It's an international game now.
A young man, 17 years old, is in this thing. Isn't that crazy?
Shot 62 or 3, I think.
63 or 62.
Yeah,
63?
come on, that's.
I did that in the front 9 the other day.
Right, but somebody that age, he doesn't have any fear. He doesn't know he's not that.
What do you have to lose?
Right, like he's playing with total freedom.
Kind of jealous.
Exactly.
Well, we do have another great podcast coming up. Mr. Scott Hoke is going to be next, so we'll dive into the Open a little bit more. But I think until next time, we'll just keep on trying to get the best guests we can and keep everybody informed.
Well, I mean, I'd be remiss if I said, you need to tune in and listen to these things because we are rapidly rising up the charts, folks, and you can be in on the ground floor if you start watching us now.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Well, we appreciate your time. Come back for the next great guest we have, and till next day, we're peace out, right?
Peace out.